Welcome back to AM Northwest. Our first guest has studied the minds of mediums, energy healers, and psychics, and what he's discovered is now in a book with lessons for everyone. We welcome the author of Becoming Psychic, Dr. Jeff Tarrant. Good to have you with us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Let's first, for the audience, kind of decipher what it means to be a psychic, a medium, and also a healer.
Yeah, so they're all sort of generic, broad terms,
Right.
but psychic, when we talk about a psychic, we're talking about somebody who can pick up information about another person or about a future event, a premonition that they shouldn't have access to.
Okay.
So if I was a psychic and I was reading you, I might know something about what's going to happen tomorrow or something about your family or something
Right.
like that.
Okay.
Mediumship is more communicating with the spirit world. So usually it's
Talking to those who have passed on.
right. Usually that's the role. Mediums are connecting with a deceased loved one,
Sure.
and communicating the information to the the client.
Okay.
And then healing, energy healing is going to be, there's a huge range of things, Reiki.
Yeah.
Most people are familiar with
Yeah.
that. Energy healing, where
Right.
you're usually channeling energy from the universe for the betterment of the client, so helping their system to recover or repair in some way.
Now, you wrote this book because you kind of evolved over time. Initially, as when you were young, you believed in psychics and mediums and healers.
Oh yeah,
Right?
big time.
And then you changed your mind. You kind of evolved to, nah, I'm a skeptic. I don't believe this.
Not so much. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. And then now you've come full circle.
Yes.
So tell me about why you came full circle.
Yeah, I think in the back of my mind, I've always wanted this to be real, to be true. But at some point, I just didn't trust it anymore. And I said, yeah, there's too much fakery out there, and there's too many ways we can trick ourselves
Right.
mentally. But then really some of my own experiences and having the opportunity to start studying some of these really gifted individuals, which started about 10 or 11 years ago. And I wasn't looking for it. It just kind of, an opportunity presented itself, and I said yes. And really it was kind of starting to work with these individuals and studying them and seeing what they could do that really pushed me over the top. And it was like, okay, I'm in.
You believe.
I believe.
Okay. And then what was it you found out? And how did you study them?
So a lot of the work that I do is using EEG, so electroencephalograph, brainwave recording. And so a lot of times I would hook up, put the electrodes on the medium or the psychic, get a baseline reading, then have them do their work, record what's happening then.
Yeah. And tell me who we have here.
This is Laura Lynn Jackson.
Okay.
She's a really well-known psychic medium, and she was actually one of the very first mediums that I got to study. And her brain is really interesting because when she's doing a psychic reading, she is able to see the information in her left visual field. So she sees it over here.
And can you see that?
I can see it in the brain map,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's what makes it really interesting from a neuroscientific standpoint is, she could just be sitting here doing nothing, doing nothing.
Right.
There's nothing interesting happening in the environment. But then when she does a reading, and it's psychic, she's seeing it here, and it shows up in the corresponding part of her brain. And when she's doing mediumship, it shows up in her right visual field, which shows up in the corresponding part of the brain. So the brain is registering information even though nothing's changing in the environment. So it's pretty compelling.
Okay, so then does that mean that you can take someone who claims to be a psychic and do the same study and realize, no, that person's just faking it? Because we do know there are people who fake that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good question. Most of the mediums that I've worked with have already kind of gone through rigorous testing by other organizations to demonstrate that they're the real thing. And I would say 100% of them show changes in the brain. Not the same as Laura, but other changes. And some of them are consistent. There are some patterns that seem to show up over and over and over again.
Okay, so you talk about, the title of the book is Becoming Psychic.
Yeah.
So can someone become psychic?
Yeah, after writing the book, I kind of think maybe I should have changed the title.
To hopefully possibly becoming psychic?
Well, maybe uncovering your psychic abilities or something.
Okay.
At this point, my theory, my belief is that we're all born with these abilities naturally, that it's a natural ability, and that what happens as we get older as we start using more language, as we're enculturated, that we stop tuning into that.
Right.
And we kind of shut it off. And so I think it's actually, for most people, more about getting the brain out of the way rather than activating the brain. It's almost like shutting off certain parts of the brain so that we can access this other information.
So do you believe you become more, I don't know, not psychic, but more empathetic or more understanding? You can see more because you've let that part of the brain go?
Yeah, exactly. And so I do believe people can learn and develop the ability to, just like meditation.
Sure.
You know, meditation, you can learn to shift states of consciousness, but you have to learn how to do it. You have to practice. And so I think we can do the same thing. Some people are just naturally able to do that. They can just shut off one part of the brain and access this. But for the rest of us, it's kind of like a developmental process to learn how to pay attention differently.
So I would love to be a psychic and be able to tell what the big lotto numbers are going to be.
Right.
So I'm just curious, how do psychics do it? Do some actually win money at big games and that kind of thing because they can predict?
Yeah, so in general, no.
Okay.
Most of them say, yeah, it doesn't work like that, right? You know, and you know, there may be this idea that trying to predict something that's happening in the future, there's a lot of things that could influence that between now and then.
A lot of variables.
There's a lot of variables, right? So whatever you're picking up now may not be what actually happens. But I do know one medium who has gotten very good at playing online poker, and she's just winning tournament after tournament after tournament, and
they haven't discovered that she's doing it.
she must be tapping into some kind of information because she's too good.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. We
Yeah.
want to tell our viewers the book again is titled Becoming Psychic. Dr. Jeff Tarrant, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.